Welcome to Beyond the Chutes is presented by ParaSight Systems. I'm your host, Doug Simcox, and I hope that you're having a great day and staying safe. In early December, Mike Swearingen hosted the Cowboy Round Table at Sam's Ranch in Brevard, New York. At the table were Mike Swearingen, Gary Sikoria, Dave Mentier, and Darrell Lane. After about 2 hours of recording, around lunchtime, the Cowboys took a break. There was pizza, wings, and lots of conversations. Note for the next time, keep the recorder running. This episode is the second recording session of the day, part 2. Part 1 of their conversation was released last week, BTC episode 66. Now here is Mike, Gary, Dave, and Darrell talking about their rodeo history, adventures, and experiences. We hope that you enjoy.
Well, we're back and telling stories on break. I don't know, some of the good rides I've seen, a couple of good rides that I had, a couple of interesting horses that I drew. Back in 1970, and I know it was the first one in 1976. I was down in Florida, won Davy and placed in another couple rodeos there. And in the spring, you don't really have to have much to get in the top 15. You know, if you win $1,000, you know, your name gets mentioned. You know, and I think I was for maybe 2 weeks or a week, make like a number 11. So I get a call. Nola Freeman called me.
Yeah.
Keith's wife.
Yeah.
Probably the best secretary of all, except for Maggie Zinzer. Maggie's phenomenal. But anyway, she calls me. She goes, "Hey, are you going to enter that rodeo at Pontiac?" I go, "Yeah, they're billing it as the largest one-day rodeo in the world. It holds 73,000 people." I said, "But you don't expect to get that at every performance." "Oh no, that's going to be on the opening night or opening day." So yeah, I said, "Boy, that would be thrilling to ride in." And she goes, "Well, you're on the list." She goes, "You're just all I need to do is confirmation, your card number, blah 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 blah, and you're going to be at the rodeo performance." Because I mean, what, Mike? There were like 3 days of slack. Yeah. I think in every event.
Yeah.
And where'd they come from?
The whole country.
Oh, anybody that had a pair of boots on was entered at Pontiac Silverdome at the Longhorn Rodeo.
Okay.
Because like Gary said, it was only a one-day performance.
Yeah.
But there's so many contestants.
They spread it out.
That they had to run slack. You know.
So I was fortunate enough to be in the one big performance. So if you walk in I've never been in a dome before. I walk in this dome like the day before, or they had after the day before, and me and Prozier. Prozier was I think number 7. So Eddie and I went down together. I walk in this place and it's huge. You know, it's a huge dome, and I was getting chills just looking at the building. You know. I said, "Well, I can't imagine 73,000 people in the seats," you know. And Eddie said, "Well, you better imagine it because it's going to happen tomorrow. Let's go up and see Maggie was working at Nola was the secretary, right. And Longhorn was kind of running the deal, but Jim had horses there. But Longhorn had been resting their horses all winter long. This was in April, and Bobby Rowe told me these horses are juiced. I go, "Okay." I said, "Juiced? Like what?" You know, he goes, "Well, we give it in B12. It's perfectly legal, but these horses are pumped up. We haven't bucked them. Been running out. We brought them in. Their hair is closed. It was a crazy. The horses looked like phenomenal." So I go to Bobby. I go, "When are they going to draw?" I go, "The horses are all drawn, you know." And I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "You better cock your hammer." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "You drew Bucking Horse, the rankest horse of the year. There's 2 distinctions. There's Bucking Horse of the Year, which that year was Nightmare of Zinzer's, and there's Rankest Horse of the Year, which that year was Longhorn's Panic. So I said, okay. So I started asking around, what about that Panic horse? And so I don't know if it was Mike Duplessis or somebody said, go talk to Ronnie Martin. Ronnie Martin's a bareback rider from Chicago, Illinois area. Good, real good guy, super guy. Right, Mike? Mm-hmm. Ronnie Martin, just steady. And a good bareback rider, not flashy, but man, good control and strong. So, and he had rode Panic twice that year, which was almost unheard of. So, no, you know who told me to go see him? Tommy Orr, the mountain man, Tommy Orr. We were buddies. And he goes, go talk to Tommy. And so I went and I said, hey, I got Panic. He goes, yeah. He said, I saw it on the list. He said, do you mind if I give you a hand? I go, no, I'm asking for help, He said, that horse is rank. I go, yeah, I guess so. So he said, there he is over there. Man, I look and I see this big. He wasn't, we'll talk about Nightmare when we go around again, but he was like maybe a crossbred, but a lot of thoroughbred in him, just very muscular, just a muscular rank, 16 hand, maybe 1,200 pound, just muscles, It hadn't been bucked since the IFR. And he said, you could get by him. He said, you're strong, you're good enough cowboy, you could ride him, which made me feel good, He said, but I got to give you a couple tips. I go, okay. He said, this horse leans in the chute, and guys are hard to mark him out because he leans, and he knows what he's doing. He said, if he's not leaning to the right, he'll pressure right to the left, however he's standing. I go, okay. He said, but what I'm going to do, he said, I'm going to pull you down or have somebody else pull you down. I'm going to be at the horse's head because what he does is he gets his head over the chute and he's real stiff and tight. He said, I'm going to reach under. I'm going to tell Bobby Rowe. Bobby Rowe was the chute boss. He said, I'm going to tell Bobby, I'm going to get that horse's nose and just bring his head this way toward the center of the chute. He said, when you get your mind quick, get ready. He says, and just get on him easy. He said, when I pull his head this way and you see his left eye, just nod your head. I said, okay, I'll do that. So just before that, you come into the arena, right? And there is 73,000 people. The band is playing, the people are clapping. I mean, and I'm an emotional rider. I mean, I really am. I ride on emotion, or I did. And I was pumped. And I had I used to like to dress up a little bit. I had kind of a cool looking shirt, and I was ready for the deal, So on the, what was it called? On the side where you could read your name, the lights flashing on one side, and it said on the left side, on the left side it says IRA #1 rank horse, Panic. Man, thank you. I don't need that. And then on the right side it says Gary Sikoria, New York, #1, number 11, blah 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 blah. And that's flashing. They're both flashing, and the crowd is. I'm first bareback rider, so after the national anthem, he comes to you. You better be nodding your head. Okay, so I'm getting ready, and I said, if I can ride this horse and place here, I got a shot at going to the finals. I'll take a month off work this summer, and I'll go with Mike, and I'll go to the finals myself. And Eddie, he drew good, and I knew Eddie was going to ride, and he's going to go to the finals. So I'm really pumped, probably more pumped than I ever have been. The band's playing, everything's going, boom, boom, boom. They do the announcements, right? I get my bind in there, and I'm tight, and I'm just kind of sneaking up on this horse. And here comes that head. Ronnie Martin's pulling that head around. I see that eye, and I just nod my head, right? Well, this horse come out of there, and I mean, he blew out of there. And when his front feet hit the ground, my spur, I had him right in the neck hard. But to my surprise, this horse's neck was so hard, it was like spurring concrete, David. and instead of me ripping it to my hand like I wanted to, boom, you're out to the side.
It's like spurring on a tractor tire. It's about
Exactly,
because it bounces
Michael.
back
Exactly.
at you.
Just out here. And boy, and so I try to get back to the neck, and he gets me tilted away from my hand a little bit. And man, he hammers it again. Whack! And third jump, he's starting to turn back, and he knew he had me, you know. And I'm still trying, but all of a sudden the earth is here. My head's going down into the dirt. So I try to protect myself. I put my left hand out to cushion my fall. And of course, I break my wrist. And I've never had a broken bone in rodeo till I'm a little in the sternum. But bam, I hit hard. Eddie looked at me and goes, "You okay?" I go, "Yeah, I'm okay." You know, oh, that hurt so bad. Anyway, the worst part of the whole thing is I didn't get anything. I bucked off. I tipped my hat to this horse after he put me in the dirt, right? He did a little dance around. I swear to God, this horse bucked around me in a circle, and looked at me. And I'm looking at him, and all these people are clapping, but now they're clapping for the horse. Yeah.
What was on
You
the
want to
screen?
do it again?
What was on the screen then?
I was in such a daze at
try
that
it
second.
again?
I couldn't tell. The lights stopped flashing, Doug. But anyway, it was a hard fall. And probably the worst part about it is Eddie Prozier had to drive all the way home, and that wasn't fun.
Oh, no, it wouldn't have been fun for you, I guarantee you, that he had to drive.
No, that's my panic story.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I got one story about another great horse that I can defer and then come back to it. It's Midnight, Jim Zinser's Bucking Horse of the Year.
How about you, Dave? You didn't have the travels and stuff that we had because you already had a pretty good family and had a shoeing business.
Yeah, I had to be home Monday morning. People didn't like it. I didn't show up.
Sucked to have to work.
Yeah.
Dave is a
They didn't
professional blacksmith.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. And so, the only good horse that I really got on that I know was good was, I don't know the name of it, but it was Dave Dancy's horse at Attica one year. It's probably the last year I rode there. I don't know what year it was. But the year Dancy was there, he had a horse that been to the NFR and went to the NFR that year. And I actually rode him and won the go-round, but I probably didn't spur him very hard.
But you rode him.
But I rode him, and he went to the NFR that year, and they placed on him there. So that always made me feel good.
Yeah. Dave Dancy's horse, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I know Daryl, I don't know if I ever met a calf roper that didn't think he could be a bronc rider. You know, Daryl told me one time he thought he could ride broncs, but what do you got, Daryl?
What have I got? I sold all my broncs. Hey, well, I got a story I'm pretty proud of traveling. I was pretty proud of. Me and Vern we went to someplace in Indiana, big rodeo, and then we went to South St. Paul in Minnesota. And I think we had to stop back in Indiana on the way home for a second run or something. I can't remember. But anyways, we're coming home. We got Vern's van. He's got Dodge van. We got a full-size bed in the back, pulling an inline trailer. And Vern's driving when we left. Well, he wakes me up in that little neck of Pennsylvania that sticks up there in Route 90.
Oh, yeah.
The first rest stop there. He pulls up the gas pump. He jumps up and he says, "I've run this gas out." He says, "and I am totally wore out. It's your turn to drive." And he just claps on the bed. And I'm so darn tired, I can't get my eyes open hardly. And I stumble around there, and I'm stumbling around. And think, boy, I am so tired, I can't drive. And I look at where we are. I figured out where we were when I woke up. And we're at the gas pump, and I turned the key on, and we had like enough gas to go 20 miles, I know. And I know this next stop is like 15 miles down the road. So I got back on the interstate, went to the very next rest area. got off, pulled up to the gas pump, and I said, Vern, I drove that tank out. It's your turn to drive. He jumps up. He's so tired. He jumps up, fills it up with gas, gets behind the wheel. He starts down the road, and he figures out we ain't gone 15 miles. He hollers and screams and yells and swears and cusses. And oh my God, he was so mad. He was so mad he drove all the way home.
Yeah.
And we're always pulling on one another, though. You know, it's just. I was pretty proud of that one. Though.
That's a good one.
You were good at that. No. Yeah, that time that we come back from St. Tip going to New Jersey.
Harmony.
Yeah, Harmony, New Jersey, and then back up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
When you got lost in Montreal.
yeah.
That's not hard to do.
Lost in Montreal.
Oh.
Oh my God! How the hell do you get out the interstate and get downtown Montreal? Oh.
Well.
Then we get down on, what were we on? I don't know where we were, but we're back in the States, and I wake up, I look up.
On 81. We were on 81.
81, is that where we were? Yeah, we did. We went over.
Yeah, we went over because we were going back to your house instead of going straight down to Jersey because we had enough time to you could go home.
We had
and
to go
spend.
get a team of horses.
Yeah.
We had to get a team of horses.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, and I wake up on 81, and here he is. He's still driving. And I look up, and there's somebody sitting in the other seat up front, and this big old suitcase. And I had the back window out of the truck. I had a sleeper on the back of it, and I poked my head up there, and I said, "What the hell are you doing now, Mike?" And I thought this guy was going to jump out the door. He didn't know anybody was back there.
Oh my
It
God.
was some bum he picked up on the road to talk to, I guess.
It was,
It was crazy. It was insane.
well,
I think he took some pills to drive. He was going to try an experiment. He
Yeah,
didn't go
I
to
bet.
sleep for a week. He didn't go to sleep for a week.
yeah, I was gonna.
Well, up there, and the diet pills were legal. I mean, you could go in a freaking drugstore.
Oh my God!
That was one of the kind of the back that whole story up to get us from start. I had some friend of mine that gave me the pills to kind of drive on, and kind of keep you awake. And at one time, it was just them little white. They were diet pills, but they just so I had a couple of them in the previous trips, and they didn't do much for me. Well, somebody else had given me another pill. They said, well, this was pretty hot. If you have to drive a long time, just, be careful. And that's all they give me is one pill. Well, I happened to be coming back. I was tired from up there saying, I don't know why. And I saw I'd just take that pill. About Montreal, I had taken it. And I got turned around up there. Well, it had a very, and I would not recommend this to anybody, but it had a little adverse effect on me, and I mean, I was wired. My eyes were jumping out of my head. We get to the border crossing, and Daryl's sleeping in the back sleeper. Like you said, he had a little homemade sleeper in the back window out, and he's sleeping back there, and I pull up there, and this young girl, trying to be very sweet, very nice, is wanted me my license and my name and where we were headed and all that. And she said, anybody else with you? And I said, yeah, Daryl's sleeping in the back here. She goes, you need to wake him up. I got to talk to him. I says, I don't know if you want to do that. He's sleeping pretty hard. She goes, no, I need to wake him up. Talk to him. I said, well, you do that, honey, because I ain't going to wake him up. I says, he's a bear. Well, she woke you up. Daryl, and she's trying to be sweet. Daryl, first thing out of his mouth,
This is to the border patrol.
kind of startled the poor little girl. She goes, well, Daryl, this told him where he's at. It says, where were you born, Daryl? He looks at, in a damn hospital. Where do you think? She goes, oh my, you were right. I give her some more information. Says, you're good to go. Go ahead. Well, then I got down there. It's raining, and the windshield wipers are going.
Oh, I forgot about the cops stopping you.
Oh, well, yeah, we got to that too. I'm running. We don't have to be in that big a hurry, but I'm wired, and we're running 70, 75, and back then it was 55 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And I had cops following me, and they were behind me, and they were going, and that was about the time Daryl woke up. I got pulled over. The troopers pulled over. He says, we've been following you for 15 mile an hour, or for 15 miles, and we couldn't catch up to you until we really got on it.
Hey.
So I told them what was going on, and had it as well. I got to give you a ticket, but we'll keep it a little bit light. They were nice, and Daryl looks up. He wakes up. I got the cop pulled over. What you know now? It wasn't too many miles after that. It's raining cats and dogs, and windshield wipers are going. I drive by, and here's this guy hitchhiking. It's pouring. I pull over and pick him up. He's so bummed that's going. And then that's when Daryl woke up and then back and scared me. I had to give him a ride to the next truck stop or something, But that was for 2 days I didn't sleep. That was bad. It was almost back to St. Tip before I finally got to sleep. And then I was so wore out. I was worthless. So yeah, that wasn't a very good choice on my part. I'll tell you. That was so. But yeah, that was kind of a adventurous trip.
We've had very good trip, that's for sure. I've been blessed with a lot of good horses, my whole career. Probably the best horse I had was named Whoops.
Yep.
Bull-legged horse. We had it healed on. I turned down $25,000 for him back in '81.
Well,
From Laddie Lewis. He's the guy that sold Don Ferguson the bull-legged horse that he won the world on twice.
well,
They had a home for him out west, and he was good enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Be out there and go. He'd have been a great mountain horse out there. He'd been famous if he went out there. He was, I'd go to rodeo, I'd have more than half the bulldoggers mounted.
Oh yeah.
well,
Yeah.
And Bucky Nasty, who was up that same year, he was his heading horse got crippled, and he headed steers on him all summer too.
well,
He was just as good heading as he owned or bulldog on all three events. He was unbelievable.
Well, you bought him off Don Cofell, and Don roped off him, didn't he?
Yeah, they tried to rope. They roped calves off him, but he slid so far when he stopped that they didn't like him. Today they love him.
yeah.
Today he'd have been a calf horse.
Yeah.
In fact, I rode him at St. Tip in the calf rope because I drew a little weak sucker and fall down, and I just hoping I'd keep him on his feet with him, one year. And we roped calves on him. Danny broke a rope on him. He was just a great horse. My daughter run barrels on him. We just do everything. We could just. I couldn't replace him if I did sell him. He was a great horse. And then I had a big yellow horse I bought at the same time about a year after I got him because he runs so hard. He's a match raced all over Florida, and he hadn't ever been outrun to 350 yards. Old Whoop. I found Don found me a big yellow horse off of Kenny Williams, Speedy father, down there that Bobby Beard's been to IPRA on a number of years, calf roping, and he was crippled, in front over the knees, big calf. But I got like 4 years out of him. You talk a horse run, oh my God! On a calf that you had to see just to start, you better see hip to the gate. That's how hard he left the box. It was scary. He run so hard. But what a horse he was.
Daryl, how did you like that little horse that little jet horse that Ward got from me?
I trained him.
You okay?
I trained. Yeah, I like that horse. I trained him. That horse.
Okay. Yeah,
Remember?
because when I got him from Bob. Remember, maybe you don't remember Bobby Johnson, little bulldogger from our area up here, and he was getting out of it. And he said,
but I remember I had that horse and I had him at the place at the farm there and worked and trained him. You know. Yeah, he's turned into a nice horse.
he was he was so fast.
Yeah, he could run. He could run for a little horse.
I remember one day I had him before he was really trained. Bob Johnson said they'd run a few steers on him. So I don't know. We were up at Dick Warren's at some little clinic, and the girls had left. Linda was there, and I had Jet there, and he said, "Boy, that's a good-looking little horse," because he was good-looking, and built well built. He said, "What are you going to do with him?" And I said, "I get a bulldog off him." He goes, "Well, I got a steer," and I'm looking around. I go, "That thing over there?" Yeah, he had about a 850-pound Hereford steer, set of horns on him. And he said, "Well, we could bulldog him." I said, "You got a hazing horse? I'll find something." So he went in, he got a horse, and he said, "Okay." And I'd never seen Dick Warren haze, so that was a little nerve-wracking, So anyway, yeah, I'm used to looking over there and seeing you or Ward or, Jack or somebody I got confidence in. And the steer was huge. So I called for him, and Jet, man, he just come ripping out of there. About halfway down the arena, I'm looking, and my hazer's catching up, but I want to get off, We're going full out. And I get down on this big sucker, and man, we hula-han. And I mean hard. And I thought the second time, it felt like Mike said he hula-han once 3 times in a row. Well, this one seemed like he wanted to go the second time, and he just laid on me. Dick Warren thought he killed me. He come right over, "Are you okay?" And geez, I was stunned. I jumped up, and he goes, "Hey," he said, "that little red horse can freaking fly." So, I said, "Well, you know what? I'm not going to do him any justice." And Ward had asked about that horse, and I called him up. I said, "You want that little red horse?" He said, "Yeah, what do you got to have for him?" I said, "I don't know. I forgot what it was. Couple grand, 1,500, I don't know." So he said, "Yeah, I'll take him." He said, "We'll make him a dogging horse." And sure enough, you guys did.
Yeah, that was a nice horse. He turned into a nice horse.
I think he sold him to one of those boys up in Jersey for pretty good money eventually.
I don't remember where I don't remember him selling. He had the Lester horse before. I never liked that horse.
Yeah, the big black horse?
The black, yeah, he was hard to haze for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never liked that horse. Well, what made Whoops really special was, like I say, they master raced them to 350 yards. Nobody ever outrun them all over Florida. One old guy owned a bunch of orange groves down there and had race horses. He told me, he says, my horse ran with him for quite a long ways. He says, also like he shifted gears and left.
Wow.
But what I'm telling, I had that Lippy horse get across the line really quick. And we matched him and Wolf's out of the box. I had them both at the same time. And Lippy would beat that horse out of the box by a full stride. The next 2 strides, Whoops took every bit of it back.
Wow.
Now let that register in your mind what that does to the barrier, how much it shortens it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
yeah.
what made,
well, you can rate him.
That's what, and he was so smooth, you didn't even feel him running on anything. But that's what made him special. And you watch them good horses, especially in the team rope and them heading horses, where they get in that downtown start, but yet they don't break out. It's them horses that float across the line, and then they run the next 2 strides.
Then they run
I
2.
learned. Yeah, I mean, if I was ever looking for horses, that's what I'm looking for today. I'll tell you that one that does that in there, because it makes all the difference in the world on how you can get out. Because very seldom broke out on hooks. And he was almost also uncanny that he'd almost let off a little so he wouldn't break out. Or let off if you got one that was setting, it's almost like he'd let off a little on them. He was uncanny.
Wow. That's crazy.
He got crippled. He got in barbed wire and he cut a front tendon off the hind leg.
Mm.
He was a year healing up, and he still couldn't flex that right. And I took him to Florida and got him in shape. And we went to Montgomery and Don McGuire. He come up there and judged a lot of rodeos. He wanted to ride him, the bulldogging. Don caught a setter out front of the chute. He went by so hard he ripped the inside horn off.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. Vern caught one halfway down that set. His feet were higher than my head on the Hayden horse, I think, and he placed in the round. But I mean, he was fired. I mean, telling you what, that layoff. Oh, he was.
Yeah.
But them kind are hard to find.
Oh yeah. Now they're so expensive that I don't know who's making that kind of money to buy these things.
I know. They're getting 10 to 15,000 over here at Pond Hill for trail horses.
Oh, gee.
Well, the price of my filly
Send 'em
just
our
went
way.
up.
It's crazy, you know.
Yeah.
I got a really nice horse. The last good ball on a horse they had was a loud black and white paint.
Yeah.
And he was outstanding too. He had that drift across the line and then run, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really nice. I sold him to Jake Edwards. Jake learned to rope on that horse.
Oh.
They bought him ponies his whole life, and they bucked him off. He wouldn't even ride. He won I don't know how many saddle ropings like at Columbus and the dummy ropings and stuff, and he wouldn't ride. Well, after 2 months of having this horse, he was placing his jackpots. That horse loved kids.
Yeah.
He was up at he roped the Clay Eller at the.
He's a pretty good roper, the kid, isn't he?
Huh?
He's a pretty good roper.
Jake?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've been telling him he needs to head. He heads very, very, very good, and he can. The problem with heading, you got to be as good as your left hand as you are your right hand, and
Really?
Jake can do it. He's that kind of talent.
Huh.
And there's a lot of ropers that heel as good as he does out there. He heels very good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think he heads good enough. That's where he belongs, because there's not that many top caliber headers
Really.
that can use their left hand. Speedy was a master at it.
Who was?
Levi said Speedy Williams, you know.
Okay.
Caleb Driggers is really good at it, using his left hand. You know, keeping them horses standing up to handle them steers right, you know.
Yeah.
Jake can do that. That's what I'm saying. Jake is capable of doing that.
Wow.
He's out in I don't know, he might be in Las Vegas now. He was in Arizona. He was going to a bunch of jackpots headed. I know he's in them finals up there. He's in the number 14. They got him numbered a 6 as a header, so he's in the 14 3 times.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
hope
good.
they do well.
That's
he's
one
a
thing.
hand.
That's one thing cool, and I'm sure all major sports are the same way, but because we're in a rodeo world and everything, the families and stuff, we're talking about going to Attica and and have a family, you know, as a family event. I mean, it isn't near as much now as it was when we were kids and everybody was going what we were talking about, because we would spend the whole weekend there and whatever.
Right, it's a whole different world.
Right, but the kids, it's like Dave started me, and then Dave had his son Jack, and I kind of took Jack and helped him a little bit, and it was all like at Attica, right around that, I mean, it was close to start by, and it's just, my daughters barrel raced a little bit, they never got into
All
it.
my kids did.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, I mean, when my son Clay was born, he was always a little heavy and big for his age, you know, so he wasn't really comfortable. He loved to ride. He's a good rider, really good horse rider and everything, and he rode quite a bit, had a nice pony for him, but he never really wanted to do anything with the bucking stock or anything like that, you know, and it was kind of funny. Well, we had a rodeo school. We had a rodeo school at Attica one year, and Dalen and Colton and then Jason Runfolo's 2 boys, Carl and Chase, were there. And they were all getting on. Well, Sam had a great big old wore-out black roping steer. He probably had to weigh 800-900 pounds, and these kids were getting on this steer. Well, the steer would just walk out pretty much. You know, at first he might go out there and trot around a little bit, you know, and Dalen and all the boys were getting on him. Well, they got on this rascal so many times in the weekend that he would just kind of step out there and stand still. He wouldn't do nothing. So Clay had been around the boys because they're only like, I don't think they're more than 2 years apart, any of them kids, you know. And Clay was actually the youngest. I think he was 5 at the time. And because Clay and Colton are the same age. But anyway, they get out there and playing around. Well, I remember we were at the camper. Clay comes in and he tells his mother, "Mom, I'm going to get on a bull." And she goes, "Really? You want to do it?" "Yep, I'm going to ride old Blackie." And Robin says, "Well, okay, if that's what you want to do." Says, "There's your safety vest." You know, they had the vest for the kids and everything, and we were handing out and everything, and didn't have helmets back then yet, but get your vest. And then I'd made him a pair of chaps back when he was little, so he was all duded right up. You know, he'd come right out of the little picture book, you know. So he goes over there, and we had just put the other kids on Blackie 2 or 3 times before that, and he just got to where he was stopping. You know, he wouldn't do nothing. So me and all my infinite wisdom, we running Blackie in there, and Clay's got his rope on and everything. I said, "I'm just going to hang a flank rope on old Blackie, but I'm not going to." I just hung it on him. It wasn't even drawed tight. It probably hung.
Come on.
It hung 3 inches below this steer. Now I'm telling you.
I'm going to have to call and see if he's going to have to repent about this story or not.
Well, I'll tell you what, that chute gate
I'll
opened.
call Robin.
Yeah. That chute gate opened, and that son of a gun come out, and he bucked like a bucking bull. He kicked over his head. He went down there, and Clay hung on there for about 4 seconds, and he just got to the end of his arm and jerked the rope out of his hand. And when he slid on the back of that steer, when he slid out, the steer was going forward. Well, he kicked up, and Clay was on his tail when he kicked up, and it slung him in the air 15 feet. He come down, and the first thing he hit was the back of his shoulders and neck. And I mean, no, it wasn't. It was his tailbone. He had his feet over his head. That's right. He hit on his tailbone and knocked every bit of air out of him. Oh, I run out there. Poor Clay. He's gasping for air, and I'm kind of. It's just hard to breathe, ain't it? And he's going. And he's panicking, you know, and now he's really scared because he can't get any air. He has no idea what just happened as far as taking his breath away like that. And so poor kid, we finally get back there, and I take him to the trailer, and he finally got settled down enough to where he's catching his breath. His mother's madder than a hornet at me, you know.
I bet.
But,
Wait till she hears you put the flank strap on.
well, she kind of knows about that anyway, but
I'll have to call Robin and find out.
Yeah. Well, what happened after, and it knocked his back out. I mean, it bruised him pretty bad. It kind of shook his vertebrae. His uncle was a chiropractor, so he went for about 2 weeks to the chiropractor, getting his back and stuff straightened out. And he got better. Well, he happened to be in the chiropractor's office one day, and an older lady in there that knew we rodeoed, and Clay was usually always had his hat on or something. She goes, "You gonna be a cowboy? You gonna be a bull rider?" He goes, "No, ma'am." She goes, "What you gonna be?" "Ambulance man." So right now he's going to school. He's out in Iowa going to chiropractic school because he's going to be a doctor. He's an ambulance man, but he's probably the smartest one that I raised. But you know,
Hell of a baseball player too.
All these kids have such an opportunity because the rodeo. It's not like going to the junior football league or, you know, all these other sports, you know. Most of them kids don't take any of it serious, you know, but the rodeo kids, especially if they've been growing up around the rodeo atmosphere.
And
They gotta want to do
that
it.
was, that was a nice thing about Attica, the family atmosphere, the little pond in the back where kids were either jumping in there, skinny dipping, or getting baptized by Mike Pastor here. And
Yeah.
he asked my son Tony, we're all Christians, of course. He said, yeah. He says, Mike baptized me at Attica. But we
That's
had
going to
some,
be the name of the episode. You know that.
Mike the Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah, the Catholic didn't know what to do when he come up out of the water. He wasn't supposed to breathe underwater. No. No, we had a lot of fun. Attica was always a good starting point. And for me, it was quite special because I always said that's where I kicked my career off, and that's where I retired. I got on my last bull at Attica there. I rodeoed professionally, basically. I mean, including like ERA when I first started. I mean, all that. If you're out winning money, it's professional.
Yeah,
And
that's where we all
so
started.
I was fortunate enough to be able to ride. I rode for 33 years, and it is, I call it professional. And I had to quit a lot of the events that I always thought that I was gonna quit first, you know. But I had to give up bareback riding before. And that was my choice because I was getting to the point where my mind was saying I was doing better than what I really did. And, you know, and then I got hurt, dislocated my shoulder, a couple different, both shoulders, but the first one wasn't too bad. My left shoulder, I got healed up and come back and rode and bulldogged. And when I dislocated my right one, I did it twice. It went out both ways, and I couldn't steer wrestle anymore because I couldn't keep my body up and stuff. So that was disappointing because I was really, really getting into the steer wrestling where that was probably getting to be one of my better events. And, you know, and then the bull riding, I tried to quit several times and never, I think Dave's wife Laney entered me one time. We were going to a Bar J Rodeo, and I almost think it was Laney that entered us one time, and I had decided not to enter the bull riding because every time I'd go up there, they were slapping me on the ground. I had about 3 or 4, a couple months probably, I couldn't ride one of their bulls. You know, it's just something about it, you know. And I finally decided, nope, I'm not going to enter the bull riding. So I told Laney, don't enter me in the bull riding. And so I don't know how I found out, whether it was when I got up there or whatever, but Maggie talked Laney into entering me in the bull riding because she needed a bull rider. Mike always enters a bull riding. He needs to be entered in the bull riding. So I got up there and got slapped on the ground again. But, you know, I probably, at that point, was actually a good turning point in my bull riding career because I had gotten to the point where, you know what, if you're going to quit on something that easy, and if you don't like it, you need to completely get out. But I was being wishy-washy, and when I did come back, the next time I entered it myself, it was a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
And then, and especially the big turning point when I got hurt real bad out in Oklahoma. It was out south, so I hung up to a bull, and it was my own fault. I had a bull that David Bailey had, a chainsaw, and he hadn't been ridden, little Bramer, and this son of a gun buck. They opened the gate on him, and he turned back, and I let the air out of him. I mean, my first move was my foot was over my head. And 7 seconds, I'm going around, I'm hammering on him. And in my mind, I said, okay, you got him rode. And I quit spurring. As soon as I quit spurring, he jerked me down. And the next thing I see is he had little horns that kind of come back, and he had a big hump on him. In order for me to get my rope up where I wanted it, I had to pick his hump up, shove my hand up under there, and then pull the rope, you know, and get it tied off. So when he jerked me down, my feet come over my head. And after about the 3rd time I was at the end of my arm, my hand wasn't coming out because it was underneath that hump, and I had my fingers locked down. He come in them horns, and it was before they had vest or anything, come up underneath my rib cage, and he broke 3 ribs, and partially collapsed lung and bruised my spleen. And when I got off of that deal, I went to the hospital. And we were out there in Oklahoma, and me and my wife had to drive back, and we were already entered at one or two other rodeos. Well, I think it was Ladding's Rodeo and maybe J-Bar's Rodeo. So I stopped Ladding's Rodeo because we were going right through there. Told them, I was, take me out. I'm doctor releasing, and I think I called Maggie or something. But when I come back from that, I really had to sit down and talk to myself. Are you going to ride bulls? If you're going to ride bulls, would you get on that bull that you just hung up to and get back on him? And I'm being honest with myself. And I got to thinking about it, and I said, if I wasn't willing to get on that bull, I was done riding. But I had made up my mind, you know what? That bull wasn't that bad. It was my fault because I quit riding him the way I was riding him. I may have got hung up if the whistle did blow, and if I opened my hand, I probably still got thrashed around. But, so that was one of the points in my life and my career, the bull riding part of it, that turned me around to where I'm going to be a bull rider, and it made a huge difference in my attitude and my ability.
I seen you make some pretty outstanding bull rides, Mike. Talking about a couple of bull rides. One, and it wasn't yours, but we're at Niagara Falls. Had an indoor rodeo, and I forgot who put it on, but it was a good rodeo. So he had a
IRA, wasn't it? IRA?
Yeah. Somebody had a real good pen of bulls there, and they had a striped Brahma bull there. But I mean, he looked unrideable to me. So I was looking to see who drew him up, and the guy's name next to him, I'm not going to say it, but I knew he was a guy that couldn't ride that bull and probably wouldn't even come down and get on that bull. So, which was kind of a waste, and they kept calling this person's name, and he wasn't anywhere to be found. And I'm with Tusi, and Tusi said, "That's the best bull in the herd." Yeah, he said, "I'm going to get on him." I said, "Exhibition?" He goes, "Yep, I'm going to ride him exhibition." So I told the contractor, I forgot. I don't know if it was Andy. It could have been Andy,
No, it wasn't
but I think
Andy.
you
It
might
was
have had
somebody-
some Treadway.
No, I don't know. It wasn't Andy. I don't know who it was. Who had that? No, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Andy.
Who was it, Sam?
All-American and Longhorn did Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Two people I ever know.
I don't think
Yeah.
it was either one of them. I can't remember who it was.
All I know is they had this bull was a hell of a bull. And Tusi said, "I'm going to get on him." I said, "Tommy, exhibition?" He goes, "Yep." So they called the guy's name one more time, and I signaled over to the announcer. I go, "That guy's not going to show up, but Tom Tusi's going to ride this bull exhibition." So I pulled Tom down, right? And that little bull come out there, and he turned back to the left, hard and bucking. And Tom just drilled the shit out of him with his right leg. I mean, made a bull ride. 8 seconds, took his wrap, jumped off that bull, and the crowd went crazy for nothing. And Tommy was happy, And I said, "You know what? That's a term you just cowboyed up."
But why I got on him is because he bucked off the money bull just before that, and he was madder than a hornet.
I didn't know that.
That's why that bull took such a beating.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he went out there with me. Me and Tom were traveling together.
That's
over
right.
Out there.
Yeah. Remember that? Yeah. Yeah.
But do you remember that ride?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he
Yeah.
hurt that poor rascal. The contractor didn't want him coming back.
No.
The contractor was out west somewhere. He
Yeah.
just come back and did a couple of them back here because he did Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys remember that,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Because I don't
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he went out there with me. We went out there. I think I went to about 10 rodeos that week. I was mainly traveling with C.R. Bridges and George Alala from New Jersey.
Really? Oh, boy.
I went out there with the town. Yeah.
That's an experience in itself. But that was a hell of a bull ride. And the other one I remember, I was way up north in Michigan. It was a cold rodeo. It was on the Labor Day weekend. I drew good. I made a decent ride. I was placing. And the bull riding came up, and Jim's best bull at the time was 090, Butterbean, okay? Very seldom. Remember him, Mike, the black bull, big hump black bull, turned back hard to the left, and this bull would lean on you, real hard. So Doyle Stanford had drawn him up, and his boys were around there. But for some reason, he said, Gary, so would you pull me down? And I go, yeah. He said, now after you pull him down, he said he's going to lean on me. So I told one of his buddies, I said, when he leans on him, just grab that bull and before Doyle's get ready to nod for him, just pinch him, squeeze that, and just get him to shift over to stand straight, right? Well, he did that, and man, Doyle, here again, this bull come out and he jumped to the left, and Doyle, the little guy, man, he went to work on him. Great bull ride. And Zinzer was standing there, his eyes were big as saucers, because he thought the bull was almost unrideable. Doyle, it was the first time, Mike, that I think I heard a 91 maybe at a bull ride. Yeah, they were, Darryl, you judged it. That was rare back then. But yeah, Doyle Stanford on 090, tremendous bull ride.
Jim had some awesome bulls. That rodeo that Vern and I were at Indiana, it was a PRSA rodeo, but they had Jim's bulls there.
Yeah.
And I can remember Johnny Day saying, oh, we got these amateur bulls here. They ain't going to do what this shit. I'll tell you what.
Who said that?
Very, very few. Donnie Gay.
Oh, really?
Very, very few of them got rode, I'll tell you. Let me tell you what.
Yeah.
I can remember we were at, me and Tushy and Farley were at I don't know where it was, Ohio or someplace out in there. And it rained, and the arena was a total lake.
Oh.
You roped the calf, you had to hold it, the calf would drown while you're trying to tie him up. It was
like
terrible. No, this is a Zinzer rodeo. Well, I can remember Joe Farley's getting on this, he's in the chute, and I'm pulling his rope, and Tushy's there, and Zinzer's flanking, and Joe nods and makes the first big lunge out of this big, throws Joe off, and he hits that water, and he totally disappears under the water.
Wow.
And and all of a sudden, it was like this huge frog leaping up out of the water. The chute. It was
skinny
the funniest. I thought we were all going to fall off the back of the chute laughing. It was so funny.
Yeah.
That was funny. Now,
that's too funny. But we talked about traveling in bad weather. Okay, I go to Cincinnati in January of '76. Okay, it was about 16 degrees there and a light snow. It's me, Donnie Crowder, Tommy Farley, and Fred Marty. Okay, and I'm in my Vega. Vegas are a four-seater. Okay, so
Four-cylinder, four-seater.
Yeah, we got. And that Vegas story is a whole other thing in Florida, believe me. But anyway, the skunk ape story.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, we leave there, and it's cold. And of course, the closer you get to Erie, the harder it starts snowing. So we get to the thruway, and it's closed, completely shut down. So I talked to the trooper. I told him, I said, hey, I'm a Rochester City cop. I said, I got to be to work tomorrow. And Fred Marty was starting up some type of business and whatever he was doing, welding something, I don't know, but he had to be home that night or the next morning for sure. Tommy Farley, he didn't care. I think he was maybe 16 years old, 17 years old. And anyway, so we get on Route 20 and we drive and I said, you know what? Everything's closed. The snow is just piling up like crazy. And I jumped in the way back. I said a prayer, and I didn't think I was going to make it home. I swear to God. And we made it, but it was a trip. It was the blizzard of 1977.
Oh.
Mike, what about horses? I mentioned Panic, and I drew Nightmare. Did you ever draw Nightmare?
No, I hadn't. I think I'd seen her buck a few times, hadn't gotten on her. I got on Terry Wrong, 3/7 Terry Wrong, the Longhorns. And
Took that run at you.
yeah, and I won a couple different rodeos on him. Matter of fact, that one rodeo where I had to, we were up in Missouri at a Longhorn deal, and I pulled in there as a grand entry was just going in. They started the rodeo with me in a bareback riding because Bobby Rowe wouldn't give me you're going to start. And I had to have calf ropers put my rigging and stuff on. And I'd have my spurs and chaps on, but I had truck trouble getting up there and made us late. But anyway, yeah, Bobby says you're gonna start. So I started. I wound up winning the rodeo on him, but yeah, I had Terry wrong. Showboat.
Yeah.
Showboat was another. Big,
Yeah, good horse.
Actually, it was a standardbred horse.
Yeah.
He was standardbred, and he would change leads during the middle of his bucking, so he would really whip you into your arm real hard sometimes. And I got on him three times, and I think the last time I got on him was at the IFR, and he went out there about 6, and then that son of a gun turned back. Oh, that was not fun. I got by him. I placed on him, but man, them last 2 or 3 rounds, I was just kind of didn't know if I wanted my hand to come out so I could get out of there or what.
Well,
Yeah. And then-
Nightmare was the bucking horse of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim Zinser's horse. A local horse dealer called him up on a Friday afternoon, and says, "Hey Jim, I got a horse that nobody can ride. Bucks everybody off. We got a little riding stables. I can't have her around." He goes, "Oh, mare?" He goes, "Yeah, a big mare, 16-3, big percheron, crossed up monster, and nice horse to be around, but not a good horse to get on." So anyway, Zinser goes and he gets the horse. She's bucking a lot of people off, so she becomes bucking horse of the year. I'm on the way to with Russ Tremano. We're going up Michigan. I forgot which one. So I think it might have been Saline. And I told Russ, I said, "I'm going to draw that mare tonight." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Nightmare. I'm going to draw her. I'm going to ride her." Okay, good. So we get up there and running a little bit late, not too bad. And he said, "I'll go up." I gave him money. I said, "Go pay my fees, this and that." And okay, so he goes up and sees Maggie, pays their fees and this and that. And she says, "Oh, tell Gary he's got the mare." Yeah. So Russ says to her, "Yeah, she's 16-3. She probably I'd say weighed, I don't know, 1,350, 1,400. She just filled the chute up, shoulder to shoulder, filled the chute up, right?" So anyway, Russ tells her, "Oh yeah, he knows he drew her." She says, how does he know he drew her?"
A little bit of trivia about Nightmare.
Well, for you people that don't know out there, Jim Zinser and Nightmare, there was a horse he sold for $200,000 named Night Jacket. This would probably be a great grandson of Nightmare.
Yes.
But at the NFR in the TV pen, out of the 18 horses, because there's probably 3 re-rides, 11 of them were off her spring, out of her bloodlines. 11 out of the 15 of horses in the country. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Night Jacket is in the PRCA Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
Yeah.
inducted
Jacket.
this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, Night Jacket. Yeah, but she was a big fill up the chute kind of girl, and no problem in the chute. Pull your rigging down, no problem. Get your bind in. She'd give you all the time in the world, right? And they give you on her. They give you little graces, Yeah. And I was very confident, and I got 3 pictures on her while I was on her. Anyway. I get her to about 7 seconds, maybe 7.5, and all of a sudden, I'm tapped off, and my spur and link is right up to my hand, and all of a sudden, it just she rips my hand out of there, and I go off backwards. I do a somersault and hit the ground, and the whistle goes off. So here again,
Yeah.
right, almost there.
Yeah.
But you know what?
A lot of power? How would you describe her?
I describe her as riding a volcano. power, just unleashed. When she came out of the chutes, and Michael bear me out, when she come out of the chutes, she jumped so high in the back, she would clack her back legs together, and they would make like you would hit a bullwhip, a crack. That's the way it sounded, crack. And I heard that coming out, and the power was there, but she wasn't hard to mark out, because she was so honest. Came down, boy, I had it right in her, and unlike Panic, you can get at least that day, that 7.5 seconds. I felt rideable, and she felt good.
Had you seen anybody ride her?
I never did.
I don't remember.
I think maybe
I know she got rolled.
she got rolled. Mike
but,
Duplessis
yeah.
told me that he rode her for about 6 seconds, and then she just twisted him. Mike could ride. He was a little guy, but he could ride. He twisted him up like a paper doll.
Had you seen her go before?
Yeah. I saw her going to Rochester Rodeo.
Okay.
Well, I think Ronnie Williams had her, and she bucked Ronnie Williams. So Ronnie's the world champion. Real good bareback rider. Big guy,
But she had
She bucked him off.
she had the attitude that Jim did. Are you ready? Get yourself set. Don't make sure it's right.
Right?
Pull it as tight as you want to pull it. I don't
Don't
care.
pull it too tight.
Oh no, Jim never said that. You sure you got that? You want a little more jerking? Pull
No,
it
I
a
mean
little
for
tighter.
she pulled you. Oh.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Okay. Well, here we go. And it was kind of cool because Jim never got too excited. There was other contractors. Don't pull my horse so tight, but you want to win first.
Okay.
Jim says, yeah, go ahead. Pull a little bit more if you want. You would get the jerking of your life sometimes.
'cause,
certain horses.
I pulled mine pretty tight. Mike, but Mike pulled his own rigging, so he knew where he wanted to be, But anyway, on some of those big stout horses, if you pull too tight, man, it's they just feel so much stouter.
The riggings were so much different back then too.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started, you could
The riggings.
use your rigging for a ironing board. And what did I get my first rigging off of you, Daryl?
I don't know. I don't know whatever happened when I had.
Hard-handled, soft-handled. Did you ride soft-handled?
Well, both really, but I never did wedge my hand.
Never
in.
soft handle the one I had. Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly almost think the very first rigging I got was from you. And, I had a couple of them things that you could have tied a knot in the darn thing.
Well, they were loose. They used to call them a noodle.
Yeah.
Because they were very pliable, okay? And what you had to do with them is get as much soap, glycerin, rosin, and make it as sticky as you, almost like riding a bull.
Turn black tape around inside out and use the stickiness of black tape. We had a lot of little tricks back.
Just get and that was it.
And you had to ride so different. And Eddie Phillips was the one that got me to riding different because you had to set up and down more and drag from the ahead of the shoulders up the neck. Dave rode like that, Gary was one of the first ones that I seen, and that more like a wild man style. Fall back, let the legs come up over your head, and be wild and western. And
You didn't do that with the soft-handled rigging.
no, not back then.
Well, I tried. I started that way. I saw Dave and Eddie ride, and they were such strong riders, But I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to lean back more. I was looking at rodeo pictures like Paul Mayo and those guys. They'd fall back and spur, and I felt comfortable in that position. So I didn't set up as much. I set up on a couple of them. But I like my legs real high up in the mane. And
Well, Dave, did you go to
Shoulder school?
Jim Shoulder's school?
Yeah, I did.
And that's the way he rode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Jim taught you guys, but you were riding with the soft-handled riggings back then.
yeah, putting a lot of rosin in, and like you're saying, but
Right.
When was that? When did you go, Dave?
65.
65.
Yeah.
And they had Jim Shoulders retired by then?
yes,
He wasn't competing anymore?
I'm not sure. I don't think he was, but I'm not sure.
And how was that? How was that school?
He had lots of horses.
He had what?
Lot of horses. He didn't give you a whole lot of instruction. He
Get on another one.
get on.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Who all went out with you? There's you,
Me and Bud Coffee went.
you,
Right.
And Bud was going to ride bulls. He did get on a couple, but
yeah.
he had a hard time.
Well, did Eddie Phillips went out?
yeah, but he went out a year or two after I
After
did.
you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him say Eddie got on like 30 head or something
Yeah.
in a little bit of time.
If hard riggings come out,
They
I
can't-
can remember Peg Burns having one at Lima,
Yeah.
the first one I saw.
He did.
You know?
He had a hard handle.
Yeah, I can remember that. Peg Burns having one. Yep.
What was that like, having started on the soft handles and moving to the hard handles? You were wedging your hand into the hard handles at that point? Was that the move, or was it still a
I
lot
don't
on
know
grip?
what they.
Yeah.
I
The
don't know.
bind, Mike. You want to explain the bind?
Well, yeah, the soft handles, you just use your grip and you use your strength of your legs, your spur and motion to try to drag your seat, basically drag your rear end down to the rigging to keep it there. And then when you kick loose, you go back to the front, basically the same motion as they're doing now, but in a whole different angle. Once we went to the hard handles, you would get and when it first started, the hard handles weren't really that hard. They was still a lot of give to them. They weren't rawhide. They started layering and changing the structure of the handholds, so they set up a little bit more, but they still weren't hard as they are now. And so you still put your hand in there. You had a little bit more of a bind, because you tried to get your glove and everything in tight. But it was probably, I would say, in the late 70s, somewhere in there, when the rawhide handles came out, and then they came out with what they called over-under bars, where you could get both bars under, which would seem to lower the pitch of the rigging a little bit more. You could get an over and under, which kind of cocked it a little bit, and never had a both bars over because you'd get hung. You couldn't get it in there. But anyway, I think the first riggings that I ordered through the hard handle one,
Jim Houston's.
I think it might have been a Houston. I did ride in a Houston. It was a soft rigging. I had a Houston soft rigging too, and but once that changed, then you had to change the gloves.
Yeah.
Because your gloves were too soft and you couldn't get them. So we started doing things like they weren't wedges, but we would put a piece of leather inside the palm piece. We'd call them a palm piece, and then glue them inside so that it gave it more thickness only in that one spot, so that once you got your hand run past there, then it would tighten down. And
So that was the bind?
that was the bind to start with. And then it progressed even a little bit more to where we started hardening our gloves and make them so that there was no wad, so that the glove itself, because what happens is you get your hand in there, and I see a couple of the worst wrecks I ever seen in my life in the bareback riding, because what happens, the glove would get wadded up in there. Now you got such a hard handhold, and your glove is too soft, it wouldn't pop back out. It would just wad up in there. And I see a couple real bad wrecks that way. And then, so we started putting benzoin to make the gloves hard and stiff on the outside.
I can still smell it.
Oh yeah, and so that changed it. And then basically about the time I finished riding bareback horses, they had just come out with a glove. I think Shields came out with a glove. Shields was an NFR qualifier, and I don't know if he ever won the world, but anyway, he came out with a glove that the little finger had a little bubble, so that if you could get your hand wedged in there and get that little bubble past the corner. And that was another thing, those riggings, we would actually file a point on the little finger on the inside pinky part to keep the edge sharp, because if it ever got wore down, that rawhide would actually wear down a little bit. You got on a lot of horses or something. It would. So we would take a file and just kind of keep that tuned up and keep that sharp, so it was a good sharp biting edge. And as long as you kept your hand to where you had pressure on the front, to where if you're riding right-handed and you had pressure coming down to the right and didn't let your little finger go forward, or you, that was your bind. And in order to get out, you would set up, lay your hand flat, jerk your elbow out, push that front so that the little finger would pop past that corner of that rigging, and then you could come out. And so that was evolution of going from soft to hard, and it was a series of steps. And then one rigging, and it's probably in the museum, and probably the only guy that I know or have ever heard of using it was Larry Mahan. And he built a rigging that was crossways. And it was like a bull rope. And he would put his hand in like that and ride it like he was riding bulls. And I think he was the only guy that I know of.
There was a kid riding last year, they showed him riding like that, one bareback rider. But for me, it doesn't feel good to put when I rode some bulls, I didn't like turning my hand that way. I really always wanted to try, Mike, to make a bull rope like a bareback.
Well, yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah. And they did come out with some. Now the PRC has outlawed them, because when I was finishing up, I had my rodeo equipment business, so I was in the business of trying to keep up with new stuff coming out. And I had a friend of mine, a bull rope maker, that built a rope for me. He says, I built this rope. He said, I want you to try it. And he called it his. But anyway, it was built at an angle. It was a 3-degree angle, so that your wrist and you could relax your wrist but still keep your elbow in.
Yeah.
And it had a little bit of a angle to it, and I rode, and that was and I sold a lot of them.
How'd that feel?
Better, and then. But the handhold was a lot like the Brazilian ropes. It was kind of a cross right now between the Brazilian and the American rope. You pulled your rope like an American rope, but the handhold wouldn't pull down. You had a little short, almost like a bareback rigging. You'd get your hand stuck in there, and then the rope wouldn't pull a handhold down, the handhold by itself, but you just took your wrap and daily. But you didn't have that torque to the inside. And it made it, and I rode with that. And then I had another guy build something similar, but it pulled down like an American rope. So the handhold would pull down, but it still had that offset. That's what they called it, the offset. And but now I heard that PRCA's and probably the PBR has outlawed them.
Oh, wow.
Why? I don't know. Because it was less torque on your shoulder and less torque on your elbow. And it didn't make no difference. If you do ride bulls, you can ride with a bale and twine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's just a place to come back to. Now, a lot of guys put a lot of emphasis on their equipment, which they need to. But the emphasis has to be on the heart and the try and the ability and the movement. It doesn't have to be on the equipment. But the bareback riding, you got to have any more. And I remember you starting that wild style. You had them
chaps.
I
still got them.
You really?
Tie-dyed?
Yeah,
like,
tie-dyed, and they were square. They're
Square.
patches,
Yeah.
patch chaps, all different colors, and Gary would go out there and the chaps were flying over his head. And it was a whole lot different style than what Dave and Eddie taught me, because I was sitting up, down, straighter. And when I was riding bareback horses and just starting, I can remember.
But you could fall back on one too.
Eventually I started to, but I had that. And even when I went out to Calgary and some of them, and at the time, Joe Alexander was winning the world. I mean, he'd won how many world titles
7.
did Joe Alexander win, And I remember telling myself, and it's funny now that I can even think of it, I remember telling myself, Joe Alexander goes out there and rides the finals, it's 10 rounds. I could compete with him. I could beat him, because I hadn't even got hardly off the farm, you know. I'm riding these horses that are hoppers going down through there and runaways. I didn't know at that time what a bucking horse really was, you know. I mean, see one once in a while, you know. I can remember telling myself, and then when I really got out on the road, I said, that was the dumbest thought I ever think I thought of. You know what I mean? Because some of these horses are rank, and these little riggings that I'm riding in, you know, and the way I'm riding. And then I think back in the early 80s, really things really started changing. And it kind of went from one extreme to the other. It went from guys setting up and down, spurring, riding, dragging to the handhold, to guys hanging on the side, upside down, legs are flopping and making it look wild. And them guys were winning all the money. And now I'm going back to the judges. I said, what do you want to look for? You want to see control and see somebody dragging their spurs up the neck, or do you want to see somebody just flopping and popping? So the judging on the bareback riding changed somewhat, and for years there were a couple guys that you couldn't beat because they just fall at the end of their arm and just let their leg. They never hit the horse with a spur but about 4 times the whole ride, but their legs were going everywhere and it looked wild, you know.
It's a lot better today, though.
Oh,
you don't see
Oh
that
my
much.
God!
I mean, used to be if you could be off to the side or anywhere,
Yeah.
and they mark you high. Now, if you don't stay right in the center,
you ain't
I
kidding.
mean, you can lay back all you want, but if you get
Yeah,
Right, and
Man, there's some good
and-
bareback riders nowadays. Oh my
And the
God!
horses, you get hung off the side of one of them horses, you're done anyway.
Yeah.
Because these horses are getting to be so rank.
Oh, God.
And you know, you make a bobble on some of these good horses out there now, you're watching NFR. Yeah, probably on 80-90% of the rodeos up and down the road that are around the country, you know, you could probably get by some of them. But some of these better horses, you ain't going to get by. When you get tilted a little bit in your arm, and you know, and I've watched so many different guys, like Dan Daly used to ride bareback horses, and he could be tipped into his arm. You swear he's going to fall off and never lose a stroke.
Really?
You know, and I said, how in the heck can he do that? Because if I get tipped in my arm, I'm falling off. You know, I mean, it's going, and then you see other guys get tipped away from their arm, and their outside leg looked real good, but their inside leg didn't do nothing. You know, I mean, it was just the chaps a flopping, and they're, you know, but these guys, like Dave said, now, you know, they can lean back and they have to get back because of the torque on them and the drop on them horses. If
But
they
they can
aren't
spur. These kids can spur.
and if they miss a lick and they get jacked forward a little bit, they're out of there because them horses are so strong now. If they crack that bind, you're done, you know. Yeah. But yeah, and the livestock has gotten so much better, is consistently so much. But the rodeo's a business, and if they can't keep up with it, and if somebody's sitting in the audience and saying, well, crap, I could have rode that one, you know, what good's the rodeo, you know? So they've got to keep that going. And it's the same thing with the contestants. You get these contestants and you get some of these smaller rodeos and you can't get anybody that can ride a stick horse to water. It's not a good rodeo. And things are going to have to change. I mean, we've tried, Sam and I put rodeo schools on for a lot of years, and we've tried to get, and we've had a lot of good hands come out of our schools. We've had world champions come out and stuff. I'm not saying, but it's gotten to the point where we would put a school on, and anybody that had a high school rodeo card was free. We would, you know, and never got one kid to come out to the school, you know, and that's depressing. And when you get, whether they just think that they can do it anyway, you know, and don't need to learn, might be part of it, or they just don't have the interest to learn. Either way, it don't matter, you know. It's so disheartening. And then you get these guys that, you know, I put schools on, and the first thing I would do is say to these guys, I'd sit them down, and we'd have a big meeting before we even started the rodeo school, you know, on Friday night, and tell them, you know what, guys, you know, this is going to take years to perfect. I said, you can have a lot of talent, you can have a lot of athletic ability. I said, but you're not going to leave here after 3 days of this school and figure you're going to go out and do much winning. I said, figure it on being 3 years before you can get consistent enough to where you can win money when you start going out and be consistent. I said, just plan on that. And I remember one school, we sat down in the barn down there. We had the school down at Lester, down at Dad's. And I said that story, you know, and we did the school, and a guy and his wife from back east here somewhere, I don't even remember what it was, but I told that, and he come up after the school was all over, and I don't even think he finished the last day, to be honest with you. But he come up and he says, Mike, he said, I got a confession to make. He said, me and my wife, we talked about this. He says, I was watching rodeos on TV, and we talked, and I'm going to be a bareback rider. And he said, that's what we're going to do. They're newly married, no kids, you know, and life, the world is out there in front of them. And he says, he talked to his wife. He says, we're going to go to the school, and when we get out of the school, we're going to hit the road. We're going to just start traveling and going to rodeos, and we're going to quit our jobs.
Okay. Good luck.
So, anyway, he comes up after school and he says, Mike, I got a confession. He says, after that Friday night, he says, you did all your talking. He said, I come back. He says, me and my wife, we sit on the bed, and he says, you know what? He's nuts in the head. You know, he says, we're going to go. And he come back after, he says, and you know what? I'm glad I came to school. I ain't quitting my job. I ain't rodeoing. This is way a lot harder than I ever dreamed it was going to be.
He's a smart man.
Smart man.
And you know what? The bulldog and the calf roping and stuff, that's the same way, Daryl. I mean, how many hours and hours and hours of practice did you do on them? Your dad's Holstein calves that he would.
You can't find kids that got the heart anymore that want to work at it.
Yeah.
That's when you find one, it's rare.
Yeah.
Like Jake Edwards, he was a rare to want to work at it. As far as I'm concerned, kids today.
And when you find those kids that have
every day, real.
yeah, if they have the ability and I've always said this, and I'll go to my grave saying it. I don't care. You can have the most talented guy in the world, and if he ain't got the heart and the drive to do it, he ain't gonna amount to diddly squat. But if you got a guy that's got heart and try and no talent, and he really wants to do it, he'll be somebody. And I've seen so many good, talented kids go by the wayside because they were just
they don't work at it.
Yeah.
They don't work.
Yeah, and
Thought they were good.
Dalen is a perfect example of the work ethic of what he's done. I mean, that kid get up at 4 a.m. and do his exercises and chores and go to school and come back and go to wrestling and come back and do chores and I mean, and it was every day. It just wasn't once in a while. So.
Yeah, but that's the way you get that. You got to really love it that much and dedicate yourself to it. That's what you want.
Yeah.
That's what they don't understand that.
Right.
I used to have Sarah in school years ago, and if you got 20 guys, you might have one with no heart. Today, you have a school, you're lucky if you get 12, and you're lucky if you got one with any heart.
Right.
That wants to work at it and go someplace. It's just, I give up. Yeah.
So final, because Dave's got to leave here, Daryl. Final subject. Freddie Backless passed away this year.
Can you hear all right, Daryl?
Passed away?
Freddie Backless.
Freddie Backless.
He did? Oh, no. Freddie was a good guy.
Yeah.
Cancer got him.
Yeah. We talked to Michelle and Lewis last night for about an hour and a half. So any stories, any memories, beginning to middle to end, of Freddie Backless that we could add on to that episode?
I think probably Mike knows him better than anybody. He came after I was done, maybe at the tail end, and I could see his first year. I told Mike, this kid's a good little bareback rider. He was a little bit like Sean McDonald, maybe even a little bit more advanced than Sean, but a good bareback rider and a good kid.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then I lost track of him.
Yeah.
And then I went to one of his little rodeos last year. When I saw your grandson won the bull riding at Alden. Yeah. And I saw him there, and we talked, and he looked pretty darn good, And I'm thinking to myself, this is the kid that was going to die a couple of years ago, and then it must have come back with a vengeance, and now he's gone. But
July 1.
Yeah.
July 1st.
July 1st, okay. But from all indications, I mean, I knew he was a good bareback rider and a good person.
He told an interesting story. Lewis told an interesting story about his dad. He started riding with Eddie Phillips, right? He went to the arena and he rode.
Yeah.
And he said one day, and his father's telling him the story, one day he's out picking up rocks that are in Eddie's arena.
Oh yeah, there was several.
Okay? And Eddie says, "What are you doing to my rocks?" He said, "Well, I'm picking them up. I'm taking them out of here. Somebody's going to get hurt." He said, "No, put my rocks back." That's inspiration.
Yeah.
That's Eddie.
Yeah.
That's old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to ride those bareback horses. There's no pickup man. I said, Eddie, what do we just jump off?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't have any pickup people here.
Yeah. I know Dave didn't ride with Freddie. You knew him a little bit, right? You know.
Oh yeah, I know him because Jack and him went together quite a bit, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I got a story about him. Well, not really a story, but remember that big old buckskin horse I had, big funky thing that I picked up with, and that. Well, I wasn't going, and I don't know whether Jack wanted him or Freddie wanted, but anyway, they're going to take that horse in this little trailer that Fred had, and he didn't fit. They squeezed him in there somehow, and away they went. And that old pickup that Freddie had must have had 500,000 miles on it, and he wouldn't never buy nothing new, you know.
No.
Yeah.
But but he was a great guy. He never seen him get, you know, ugly about nothing or with anybody or.
Yeah. Well, Freddie was one of the reasons back when they first started coming out with these video cameras, these smaller portable video cameras that didn't look like great big TV things sitting on your shoulders, and little handheld ones. Well, Freddie was traveling with me, and quite a bit. You know, I hauled him around when he first started wanting to go to some of these IRA rodeos. Well, Freddie's idea to start with, right from the get-go, was his dad rode in a RCA, so Freddie wanted to be an RCA cowboy, but not being enough rodeos around here to be in the RCA, you know, he had to go to the ARA and IRA and stuff. So Freddie first kind of came around, and I don't know the first place I actually ever met him, but it probably was Attica, someplace like that. But anyway, he started traveling with me a little bit, and Freddie was very thrifty with his money. I'll be polite about that. but as we got to going, Freddie was just getting really learning, and he could move his legs. He could get a good spur stroke on the horse. But Freddie had the same mental attitude that I had when I was talking about Joe Alexander. I think we thought we were better than what we really were to start with, be honest with you. And I love Freddie to death, you know, and we're good friends. But I told him, he said he was complaining about the judge. And I said, Freddie, you're really not dragging to your handhold. You're coming about halfway and popping out and going back. I says, it feels good. But I says, he argued. He was madder than what honey at me. And I said, I'm telling you right now, this IRA, blah, 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 and, you know, you can't win nothing. And he was kind of really down on that. And he was winning back in ARA and stuff back here. You know, he was doing all right. And so I told him a couple times. And so I decided, I had a nice crew, and I had a bunch of young guys with me. I had him. I had Kelly Page was with me, and Sam was with us quite a bit and stuff at the time. But I says, Tracy English. We had a couple bull riders in there, so I went and bought a video camera. And at the time, the camera was small, but you had the big battery pack and all that, so you had to have somebody filming in the bleachers to where you could be filming stuff. And a lot of times, Robin might have been with me or something, or they had somebody able to film from the bleachers when there was a little bit of time off, either one of the rough stock riders or whatever. And I says, I want you to film all of us riding, because we're going to take that film. And I had a little 12-volt TV that I set right on the dash. I Velcroed it right to the dash of the truck, and we could take that videotape, run it through the cassette player, through that, into the camera, or into the TV. And so we'd go down the road and we would watch our rides and kind of pick them apart. And so Freddie, and I did that 2 or 3 rides. I said, right here, Freddie, and you could slow it down, you could pause it and everything. I says, this is what I want you to watch. And it was probably about 2 weeks of that, his riding changed. And he changed it. I think it finally got to him that he was riding better than he thought he did.
Yeah.
And that's the exact reason why I quit riding bareback horses, because I was going there, my mind was saying you're riding better. And then when I walked by a judge, he said, if you moved your feet a little bit, you'd have won this thing. And I had a practice horse that I thought I hoed it out of. And I went back and asked Rob, and she said, no, your feet didn't move. I said, I'm done. It was my last bareback horse at the SRA finals. But, the mind is such an important part of the player. But, so that kind of kicked. And it wasn't too much longer after that. Freddie got good enough. He was winning enough money. He took off on his own, hauled Jack, hauled Kelly Page, and started off going to his own, But, yeah. Freddie was a pretty good hand. He was pretty handy. I got one little story about Dave when I was little, and just as a little quickie, that Dave rode a bareback. It was at Lima. I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that. And but like I said, Dave was my hero, and he rode a bareback horse at Lima and got off, and he's coming back, and I was following him, a little puppy dog following him, and boy, Dave was mad, and he kicked the can from here to he could have kicked it all the way across 100 yards, and it kind of surprised me because I'd never seen Dave upset like that. And so, boy, Dave, you did good. You're winning it, right? And, no, they got me at the gate. I missed the horse out. I didn't miss that horse out. He went all the way back.
Judging, Rod?
Oh, my goodness, he was hot now. And I said, well,
See you later, cowboy.
I'll be back here behind you. I'm staying back. But no, most of the time, it was just fun watching. But yeah, I had to tell that story on him. But
I don't remember that.
Will you say hi to Laney for us?
I'll do that, yeah.
Daryl, how many different guys did you have haul with you? I mean, me and Joe and Vern. But how many more guys do you think you drug along that went on to really do something?
Greg, Jay Aldridge.
Yeah.
I hauled Jay a lot. He went to NFR this year.
Who did?
Jay Aldridge.
Yeah.
And I hauled him a lot, and his brother Robbie Sweet. Man, I hauled Wade Ellsworth, a lot of guys out there I hauled with, different guys that hauled with me. The Roundses, Rex Rounds, Mike Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's just so many of them I'd hauled with.
And that's the fun part of it. I mean, I know you hauled me, but when I crawled in with Jack, I crawled in with all those, Jim White and Mike Sanders and some of them guys all been to the NFR. You haul with the toughs. You either got to be tough or you stay home.
Yeah, stay home.
And that was
right. That'll make it tougher too.
Sure.
It'll make it that you either get tough or you go home. And you're no better than your competition. That's the way it is. And I think the mental part is a big part of the game, but you also have to have the talent too. But I know a lot of guys like that could outrope me in the calf roping and at home. They'd make me look silly. But we go to the rodeo, I could beat them every run.
Right.
Just because I don't let it bother me. I don't let the pressure bother me, and I get tougher when I get there.
Yeah. I think that's what makes the difference. That's what really makes the difference between an ordinary, an ordinary hand, and I'm sure any sport, it doesn't matter, any sport is like that. But you take somebody that can handle the pressure and use that to their ability, then that makes them a better hand, and
and have the confidence in themselves that they're as good as anyone there. Right. You got to think that whether you are or not.
Yeah, Mahan wrote a book that I read, and I had a couple discussions with him about the book. But he was always he always professed that you should. either close your eyes, mentally prepare for your ride. In other words, almost see it like it's a movie playing. Okay, if you knew it, not that the horse is going to do exactly what you visualize, but visualize that mark out, visualize that spurring back to your hand, visualize getting. I'm talking about bareback riding. Just visualize every movement, and before the ride, get it planned out a little bit. You're probably going to be right half the time, because you can't predict what a horse is going to do, but you have an idea what it might do. They're going to buck, So visualize your mark out, visualize your stroke, visualize, how it's going to feel, and just be tough. Be mentally positive. And coming from the background that I had growing up, where sports were important. You hung with tough guys, you played tough sports. You're always trying to be the best. Not for survival, but by being somebody, that had a reputation of being a stand-up person. You had to work at it. You had to work at it. And I think that was my philosophy when I rode, or whatever I got on. I didn't ride that many bulls, but the ones I rode, I did pretty well at. I love steer rustling. I made some nice runs. I won a few nice rodeos. I loved it. I loved the adrenaline, but I liked planning for the ride. Like when I used to watch like you and Ward and Mike, steer rustle, your form, and I'd visualize that, bending my knee, get my right arm down along the outside of that steer, riding up to the steer, getting that, and you always, Professor, take that inside horn, put it in your back pocket, and bulldog, And I visualized that. It didn't always work out, but it's what I visualized and what I strive for, and I like to win, I like seeing my friends win. I've never been, and maybe it's the way I've been brought up. I've never been an envious or jealous person.
You're right.
I always root for my friends and even guys that I compete against. I want to win. I want to be number one.
But I don't want to win fair. Somebody else wins.
If Darrell Lane's got a good steer and he's going to have a good run, I'm probably not going to beat him. But hats off to Darrell. So that's just always been my attitude. Stay positive, stay focused, and work hard. And I trained. I always was in pretty good shape. And, it passed on a little knowledge, like helping Mike out when I saw what I saw in Mike and young Cowboys. And if I could have helped them just a little bit, that really made me feel good. It makes me feel good today, that I know these guys. I know Sam, I know Mike, I know Darrell's, I know Ward's, the guys that I met and lived with in rodeo. I have my best memories. I loved the sport of rodeo. I love the guys that I rodeoed with. It's just been a lifelong dream of mine that I fulfilled, and I still think about it probably more than I should, to be honest with you. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You're sticking to it, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, Darrell, it's Sam. How are you?
Good.
Good. Well,
Who?
Sam.
Sam.
Yeah.
Swearingen.
Sam Swearingen?
Yeah.
That non-driver?
Oh, no.
I never seen anybody couldn't drive any bit more than you. I don't know how you got to a rodeo, Sam. I don't ever.
I made sure somebody could that was in the truck. That's all. Hey.
You were smarter than the rest of us. Yeah.
Well, and it kind of worked like that here now, because you guys been on here for 4 hours, and
I know.
Now that Mike's been that sore with his jaws, maybe I can last to the end with him. I'm not sure.
I know. Well, between him and Gary, it's a fight.
Good thing Romano's not here.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody'd
There's a
talk.
lot of verbal diarrhea going on there. I know that.
I'm sure there already has been, and there'd be a fist fight at the end of that.
Good thing I got somebody sane to talk to finally.
Thanks, Darrell.
Okay, go on with your stories. I just thought I'd say that now that Mike's had 4 hours in, I might last as long as he can talking.
Right. I doubt it. He's pretty,
I doubt it too.
Oh boy.
oh,
Yeah.
Doug, any questions?
Stay on the rodeo mindset.
I don't know about percentages, because as you're going along, when you first start out, for me, I didn't have much of a mindset. I was just having fun. It wasn't really much of a mindset. It was just, let's go on. We're roughnecking it around it. But you wanted to try to do what you could do. As you progress, you learn. And as you get into the competition to where you're doing it for a living, you have already created that mindset to some of winning. And I get so frustrated with some of these guys, some of these young guys that when they buck off, and I watched the PBR the other day, and one of them young bull riders went out, and he bucked off. It was a good bull. He didn't just fall off like I did a lot of times. Magazines, you round ass, you fell off. And he went over there and took his riding hand, as dumb as he could be, and then beat on the bucking chutes.
Oh God.
With his knuckles, with his fist. And I said, that showed me the immaturity. And he's a hand. He's a hand. I take nothing away from him. But you can be upset with yourself. You can, but you got to change your mindset a little bit. You can make mistakes. You have to learn from them, because everybody makes mistakes, but you have to learn from them. And if you can't
absolutely.
put that into practice and take that mindset and make it to where it's a good energy, it's just a hard road. And the way I've always felt about it, I gave it 100% most of the time, and when I didn't give it 100%, I knew it. And that was the hardest on me. When I got done with something and I didn't give it 100%, that's bad. That's really bad. And I think
You failed yourself.
one of the times, and we might have talked about this on another thing, but I had gotten into a bad slump, and I had borrowed a bunch of money to go to 3 or 4 rodeos down south, and I hadn't done anything. I'd been in a slump for a month, hadn't won nothing, and I went to this one rodeo, and I drew a bull that hadn't been ridden, and bareback riding, I didn't do nothing. Steer wrestling, nothing. The bronc was nothing. I just didn't win any money. My last rodeo, now the announcer's building this bull up, big time. I had never been ridden in 3 years. Blah blah blah, and I was at that point. I'm pulling my rope, and my mind goes to saying, "Oh, here we go again. You're gonna go home. You borrowed this money. Now you're gonna have to work it off." And just about the time I was taking my last rap, I said, "You whiny little crybaby, get your head out of your rear end. You've got a bull that hasn't been ridden. The ground is perfect for you, for me, for the bull, because he was a short-legged little Hereford that had lots of gas, and it was muddy."
Where was it, Mike?
We were in Louisiana.
Oh.
We were down in Louisiana, and I said, "Get your head out of your rear end and prove that you're a hand." And I nodded my head. He turned back. I won the bull riding. I won $360. The first $360 I won in over a month. It wasn't much, because it was just a small IRA rodeo down there. But that was a big, big turning point in my mental attitude of being able to control what my mindset's going to be at the next one. Because after that, I never would let myself get into that mindset of, oh, here we go again. I ain't gonna win nothing. So it takes things like that, and throughout your whole career, stuff happens like that. But there's always something that's in the way. You either got a bill you got to pay that you got to do something with. And myself personally, and I know a lot of people are a little different than me, if I rode the best and won more money, being happy, lucky, goofing off, before I got on and just not worrying about anything and just going out and having fun than when my back was against the wall and I needed to win. That's when I rode the best, I think, is when I was just having fun doing it. When it got to be where it wasn't fun and my back was against the wall, there were times I would choke. So the mental aspect of that part of it was quite different. Yeah. And you know, things had to click, and it just, and I know, you know, like with Daryl, you know, he had such a good team of horses most of the time in roping. You know, I don't know I'll let him talk about it, but if he got in a slump, at least he had a little bit of backup 90% of the time, because he mounted a lot of tough son of a guns. But what do you think about that mess?
Well, it is. You get in a slump. That's the hardest part about it, is pulling yourself out of that slump instead of getting a bad attitude.
Right.
You know, and I had one year I just quit and come home finally. I could nothing right. You draw a good steer, and the hazard come and knock you off the steer you catch around. Just a weird thing. Mm-hmm. You know, nothing would go right. You know, it would be crazy. It was crazy. You know, I finally just quit and come home. You know, but the next year it was totally different. That's when I bought that wolf park that winter and come home, and I went to 13 rodeos in a row and win them all.
Huh.
And Joe and Vern win second and third on wolves.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, then I got started thinking I was pretty hot shit. And
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's when you got a big hat.
you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Thinking, whoa, I'm pretty bad.
Yeah. Somebody had a pin on your little bubble, didn't they?
And the first one I ran was at Cowtown, and I run out there and I was 4 on him. You know, at 4 in Cowtown, you're going to win some.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there was no timer in the arena.
Oh, no.
I know. So I got to run them again after rodeo. I come back and I'm 4 again and win the rodeo. But, I mean, so you got it, you know, you can't get so high the other way you think you're unbeatable either. You got to keep that right attitude to it all, you know. And it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
When you're drawing bad or something, you know, and it just things don't go your way sometimes. That's rodeo. That's life.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to learn to, you know. I was at Houston. I drew a setter, and I can catch setters as good as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Steer run out there and set and sucked his head between his front legs, and there was nothing to even grab a hold of.
Whoa.
I skipped over his head, and there you run pens down there. I come back the next pen. He come right back with Alan. Good. What the hell's his name? Alan Good. Trains Steer Russell horses. Runs out there, steers sets, puts his head up near and says, "Catch me."
Yeah.
Wins the round. He's 3 and wins the round.
Yeah.
But that's you know, that's the way things go sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, that's just life. In the rodeo, and that's what it happens. You know how it is, you know.
Sure.
Bulls don't make the same trip every time. The horses don't. Some days are good. They fire more than others. They miss a little flank or something, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's different. There's so many variables, but you just got to keep a good attitude about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't really miss going like that anymore. I've got pretty content staying home.
Yeah, really.
And in the mental aspect, I've learned so much from Dalen. You know, he reads books on it, and he studies it. And when we were at the wrestling tournament and the state qualifier, and he was like a freshman or something, 8th grader, and he lost in overtime and slapped the mat. And all I said to him, you know, if you had that much energy to slap the mat, you didn't leave it out there. Never had to say another word.
Wow.
And it sunk in, I'm pretty sure. But I got word of this girl that was in the Olympics. Her father was a stock contractor in Canada, and I know him pretty good. And she worked a lot on the mental aspect, and she started working with Cowboys. So I told Dalen, go ahead and get a hold of her. I talked to her and said he was going to call her, get a hold of her, and talk to her. Well, he's tighter than paint on a pipe. He wouldn't do it. He would not do it. I said, "Have you done it?" No. No. And one day he lost some money in the casino, and he was talking to her. I said, "Why'd you finally call her?" I said, "You had that attitude, you wouldn't do it." He said, "Well, I lost enough money." He said, "I think if I could do that, I better try calling her." But she really changed his attitude. He quit listening to all the commentators, quit doing what everybody thought he was supposed to do, and he walked away and didn't listen to people. And and I'm a firm believer that's what cost him to win the world, because he just didn't hear, that, oh, you can't ride to the right, you can't ride to the right. He heard that from everybody all the time. And
No, that riding to the right, I called him up and I scolded him and told him,
That sinks in when they say that. It sinks in.
well, when it goes to your mind, when doubt goes in your mind, doubt takes over.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
And doubt is powerful.
Oh, to get it out of there is difficult.
Yeah.
No, that's why I told Dalen when he's having trouble going to the right. I called him up. I said, "Dalen," I said, "you can ride them through the right as good as you can to the left." I said, "It's all in your mind." I said, "Two things that I'm going to tell you. The way you're pulling your rope, put it up towards the center a little bit, because if they go the other way, it's getting all that power whipping down. And the other thing is, I'd rather have them go away from my hand, because I could get moved over. I could spur them better
Me too.
away from my hand, because I could push on my arm." I said, "You can do it. You find your own spot." And I kind of scolded him a little bit. And then after the World Finals, he just walked up after we were done, because he rode that one that went away from his hand and rode him, wound up doing good. And he just walked by and we were talking. He said, "Thank you." And I said, "For what? I didn't do nothing." He said, "Yes, you did. And I just walked away. And that made me feel good, because he had remembered that little bit of it. Whether it went any farther than talking to him, but sometimes that's all we needed to hear.
Absolutely. Just encouragement instead of downers all the time, I agree. You don't listen to them freaking announcers telling you how great you are, how terrible you are.
Yeah.
Doug, you're great.
Oh, Doug.
Yeah.
And Doug would build me up and I'd fall off like a fat girl.
Yeah, just shut up about me. Let me be me.
The mental aspect is completely different at different levels. Back here, I think mental aspect is very minute compared to ability. But when you get up at that elite level, the mental aspect is about the only difference between, because everybody's so good, so good. It's that you got to have some kind of edge, and I think that's the difference.
It is.
I mean, those guys, they all look like they're in terrific shape, or they all lipped in.
Where I think it really shows up is in the calf roping. There's so many of them young guys that rope so good, but they just get so uptight and overrunning themselves. They screw everything up on the ground. They can't tie it. Just slow down, have half a step. It could be 2 seconds quicker, 3 seconds. It's crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
Watching them, they can't control that adrenaline, they let it get to them. They got so much talent.
Oh, yeah. Adrenaline's a hard thing to control. Man.
Yeah. But you can see, I really see it in the calf rope. And one of them guys, and then like that Jack Johnbug, I seen he finally harnessed it the last couple of years, and he's turned his whole game around, because he's harnessed it and learned how to just make his run.
We hope that you enjoyed this second and final installment of Mike, Gary, Dave, and Daryl's conversations. If you do, please share it with your friends. To make your listening easier, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow us. We also have a Facebook page, Beyond the Chutes. Please find us, like us, follow us. We have lots of great pictures and reels and content that go along with these episodes. Leave us your comments. We love getting them. Speaking of the Facebook pages, check out the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page. And we want to say thank you to ParaSight Systems for their support with our podcast. ParaSight System is a push-button parasitic diagnostic system for pasture animals, horses, cattle, goats, sheep, and chickens, and for your companion animals, your dogs and your cats. You can find them at ParaSightSystems.com. And we also have a coupon that helps you do mail-in testing of your horses and your cattle. It is BTC 023, and you'll get 50% off their test kits and their results. This is Beyond the Chutes. Until next time, this is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.